I have a number of lenses that I love using to capture portraits of people, including the Nikon 105mm f1.4 and the 85mm f1.4. But there is an incredible lens that I have that can give me amazing and unique portraits. And it may not be the first lens you think of when imagining a portrait lens. It is the Nikon 85mm f2.8 PC lens. The PC stands for perspective control, and it allows you to shift your lens up or down and tilt the lens at an angle. Both Canon and Fujifilm make tilt shift lenses and designate them as TS lenses. TS, tilt shift, makes sense. There are third-party lens manufacturers like Rokinon, TT Artisan, and Samyang that also make tilt shift lenses for multiple different camera brands. You can use this lens to go from a regular portrait like this, where the face and hand holding the phone are in focus, to an image which has incredibly unique out of focus aspects. Just look at how the eyes and the face are still in focus, but now the hand holding the phone is out of focus. These images are both captured with the same aperture, f2.8. And look what happens when I back up. Again, the face is in focus, but the feet are completely out of focus. You just can't do this with a regular portrait lens. You can create amazing, unique portraits with a lens like this. You can also use the tilt when capturing images in vertical format. For reference, the image on the left, there is no tilt. In the image on the right, I have tilted the lens so there is a vertical line in the middle of the frame which is in focus, and the left and right side of the image are out of focus. Normally, when you have two people the same distance away from your camera, they will be in focus, but with this lens, you can tilt the focus so that only one of the two people is in focus. This means that you can really draw attention to your subject and have blur where people are not used to seeing it. In this example, the person's face is in focus and their hands are out of focus. The eyes of the painting on the back of the wall are also out of focus. But with a tilt of the lens, look what I can do. Now my subject's face is in focus, and so are the eyes of the painting on the wall in the background. Yet I still have a lot of blur in my image that draws attention to my subject. To understand how this lens does this, let's take a look at how focus with a typical lens works. When you focus a lens, there is a plane of focus that extends away from the lens like a wall. The plane of focus is parallel to the camera sensor, and everything that is that far away from the lens is in focus. So here you can see that when the lens is not tilted, all the figures that are in the line in the front row are in focus. When I change my focus point to the second row and to the third row, that line of subjects are in focus. This is how all lenses work. Now with a tilt of a lens, that plane of focus tilts as well. So when you focus the lens, you have objects in focus that are at different distances away from the camera. The plane of focus has tilted, so one of the characters in the front line is in focus, but that line of focus tilts at an angle towards the second and back row. If you look at the gray Lego studs, you can see exactly where that line extends. The 85mm f2.8 PC lens is a manual focus lens, so I use a tool called focus peaking to help me see what parts of the scene are in focus. When I manually focus the lens, the red parts of the scene as viewed on my LCD are the parts of the image that are in focus. This is especially important when tilting your lens, because the part of the scene that is in focus can just be a vertical or horizontal sliver of a line. To set up focus peaking, the lens and the camera have to be in manual focus. I select focus peaking from the menu and set it to the highest sensitivity. I choose red for the color of focus peaking so I can easily see what's in focus. In some high contrast situations, focus peaking doesn't work very well, so there are times where I prefer to look through the camera's viewfinder. One thing to be aware of when using extreme tilts with a tilt shift or perspective control lens is that sometimes the metering system of the camera can get fooled. I have had photos that were over or underexposed. So I set everything manually, including my aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. I tend not to use auto ISO because if the metering system is fooled, then auto ISO will get the exposure wrong. It is really important that the camera shows the effects of the settings that it is seeing, so when I view the image, I can see if it is exposed correctly. On my Nikon D850, I do this by pressing the OK button. So when I start, I look at the screen on the back of my camera and adjust the ISO until the picture looks correctly exposed. You can see that focus peaking helps me to see what part of the picture is in focus. Then I tilt the lens upward, and you can see how now that focus becomes a horizontal line across the face of my subject. I often like to capture a vertical portrait as well, so you can see that without any tilt, the whole face is in focus. But when I tilt the lens, the plane of focus becomes a vertical line across the face of my subject. So I choose an eye that I want to be in focus and capture the image. I really like experimenting with tilting the lens, so in this case, I had a vertical line of focus for my subject with blur on the left and right side. Then I rotate the lens around on the camera so I would have a horizontal line of focus for my subject. What do you think? Do you have a preference for a vertical or a horizontal line of focus? I understand that one could add blur in a program like Photoshop, but to me, it just isn't the same. I learned so much by going out and trying things with a tilt shift lens like the 85mm f2.8 PC lens. That experience gets me to ask questions and experiment, and I love to learn in a hands-on way behind the camera instead of manipulating an image on the screen. Do you have any ideas for a tilt shift lens that you would like me to try out? Let me know. As always, if you like the content I am creating, please consider subscribing. Thanks so much.